I want to ask you a little bit about Liverpool. There's a big breaking story tonight that,
Oh,
first of all, Ben Jacobs broke it. Fabrizio has now corroborated this story that Liverpool are seriously exploring Roman Lavia. They want to challenge Arsenal for his signature. Now, we know that Soboslai and McAllister are already in. Liverpool could potentially be about to add Lavia into the mix. We know Arsenal are looking at him as well. That could be a really formidable, young, powerful midfield that Klopp's building at Anfield, you know?
yeah. No, look, I mean, I find it ironic because all of last season I was slated by Liverpool fans because I basically said, look at your midfield. It needs complete, to copy Ranić's saying, you need open heart surgery in that midfield. And spending all of your money on one player in Bellingham is going to be like when United bought Pogba and expected one player to basically fix their midfield. It was never going to work well for Bellingham or for Liverpool. And it was much wiser to kind of spend that 100 million plus on 2-3 players to, the sum of the parts is greater than the whole, or whatever that expression goes. So I find it a little ironic that the same people who booed me now, that all of a sudden it's great business by Liverpool, which I agree it is. McAllister, top player. Soboslai, I like a lot. Actually, I like Soboslai, but is that the player maybe they should have gotten? We'll see. I like Lavia a lot. I went on your channel, last week, 2 weeks ago, I said Lavia is a top talent, and I could definitely envision him as one of the best midfielders in his position going forward based on his potential. But is he ready after one season of professional football, which that's all he's played for Southampton, to now be the leading defensive midfielder for a club like Liverpool or a club like Arsenal? I think it may be a little too soon. And that's why maybe joining Arsenal and being like a deputy for Rice could be better for him. But at the same time, Liverpool are kind of trying to rebuild this squad and get a young team that all have around the same window. And he would be learning under Fabinho, who, in my opinion, is on the decline, but he can still contribute somewhat. So, yeah, I mean, look, going forward, Romeo Lavia, my man McAllister, and Soboslai, that's a decent midfield three going forward. Plus, you add the likes of Curtis Jones, who, in my opinion, ended the season really well last year. Harvey Elliott, who fans are very critical of, but let's not forget, is still extremely young himself. Yeah, I think Liverpool are building a nice little midfield over at Anfield.
I agree. And I think that I look at Lavia. Lavia to Man United would make sense because it's start a lot of games. You play understudy to Casemiro.
Yeah.
And in 2 or 3 years' time, when Casemiro moves on because of age, he'd be ready. I think exactly the same thing when it comes to Liverpool, because I think Fabinho next season, with the legs of McAllister, the youth and exuberance and power of Soboslai and Lavia, 2 of the 3 playing with him regularly, being rotated. He may be missing some games, so some of maybe the easier European nights, as an example, some of the easier games in the League Cup at the beginning, if they're easy. Lavia plays and Fabinho gets a rest. I know he's only remember, Fabinho's only in his late 20s. He's not, people are talking about him like he's 35, 34, 35. I think the inclusion of these young players could almost give him a bit of a rebirth as well, if that makes sense. So, yeah, look, from my point of view, I look at Liverpool, if that's their midfield, it's not only going to improve them in the short term, that's 5 to 8 years of quality there again. Whether Klopp's here for it or not, that is excellent. The only thing that I still think Liverpool fans are upset about, some, is this should have happened, and of course not with this profile and individuals, because Lavia wouldn't have been around, but this should have happened 2 years ago. The difference between Liverpool and City is City. Look at City this year. Kovacic already in. They're talking about Kimmich. They're talking about Frankie de Jong today. No one's corroborated that story from the Sun, but they're looking at Frankie de Jong. They tried to get Rice. They will spend. Guardiola's coming in. Liverpool don't do it. Arsenal last year. We're not even onto them yet, but they missed out narrowly. Gone and done 200 million in the first 2 weeks of the window. Liverpool need to behave like that year in, year out, with their revenues, with their owners, and they're doing it this summer. They're spending big and or buying quality. I mean, that will be. And they've got McAllister cheap because of buyout clause. I think Lavia is a buyout clause as well, maybe around 40 million. So they're getting 75 million pounds worth of talent. If you actually market value those guys, you're probably looking nearer 110, 120. If McAllister didn't have that clause, he'd be a 60, 70 million pound player. So yeah, look, Liverpool are looking like they could start like cooking. Do you think, where else do you think they need to add as well as midfield though?
Yeah, no, first of all, I completely agree with you, right? I always say it is much more difficult it's more difficult to stay at the top than to get at the top, to get to the top, basically. So I think you left out the biggest one. United, honestly, the ruthlessness that Sir Alex moved in the transfer window, getting rid of players that people thought at the time were crazy, like Van Nistelrooy, like Beckham, like Stam. Of course, there were personal problems in there as well, but he got rid of these guys at the peak of their powers and still kept his team at the top because he basically foresaw their decline before it even happened. And I think that was Liverpool's biggest mistake. Completely agree. They needed to continue strengthening and putting their foot on the neck of their closest competitors when they were at the top. And that's what's contributed to their downfall. Where do Liverpool need to strengthen next? I think, so the way Liverpool kind of finished the season last year, if you remember, right? It wasn't what we were used to seeing with Liverpool, where we typically see Robertson on the left, Trent on the right, bombing forward. They kind of switched the system where Trent is now playing in midfield alongside Fabinho, and Robertson is almost playing as like a left center back, and it's almost like a back three: Konate, Van Dijk, and Robertson. I think that left center back role is where Liverpool need to invest in next, in my opinion, because I think Robertson has been a great servant for that club, and he's put in some unbelievable years in the last few years in the Premier League. But I think they need someone who can play that inverted center back role more, or that inverted left back, whatever you want to call it, to a higher level than Robertson can. I think you get someone in that role, and then I think you look at Liverpool. I don't know if they'll be ready this season, just because there's also a lot of question marks over these guys. Are they ready to get back to challenging City? But going forward, then you got a top team, man. Liverpool, honestly, this rebuild is looking good.
No, it is, and they've reacted very, very, very quickly indeed. To that, I think you're right in that role, because they're very much going to use Trent. I think Klopp has woken up and smelt the coffee. I feel like they're going to use him in that inverted role. They're going to keep him away from defending as much as they can, which is important because we all know about Trent. I remember we used to have, when we used to do Friday night on the terrace, the amount of debates, it almost happened every week. Who was better? Like, you had like Reece James or Trent.
And Cancelo too. Don't worry, Cancelo was in there because I got killed for Cancelo.
And AWB was in there. But this was the thing. Yeah. When it was about marauding and attacking, Trent or Cancelo nearly always came out on top. Everyone rated Reece James because he could do both. In the last 12 months, and I remember saying this, I think we spoke about this on one of our shows years ago, it always, positions rotate. AWB is looking like a better right back again because defending is becoming a key component of right backs in 2023. So suddenly you're rating a defender that can defend, and the Cancelos and the Trents, who are not great at defending, they're good, not great. Suddenly nobody wants them in their defense anymore. They want them moved into midfield or sold because things evolve, things change. Teams work out how to nullify what you're doing. Or, like with City, until they change their formation this year, like with Liverpool, until they put Trent in midfield, the systems get found out and exposed. Now, the world-class managers, the Klopps and the Peps and the Fergies and the Wenger of old and many before them, they adapt their systems, their formations. They drop a player. And fans go, why are you dropping so much?
They foresee it. Honestly, I always say football goes wherever Pep takes it, to be honest with you. Everyone now is playing this, 3-5 or 3-2-5. Everyone is doing it because Pep did it first, man. The guy is an innovator, but yeah.
No, 110%, mate. I couldn't agree with you more. It's loads of people do it, and we saw it. The older fans remember other managers doing things, and people following suit and copying. It's an absolute crazy one. It really, really is.